What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actors comes face to face with one of its most controversial broadcasters? In just 25 seconds, a civil conversation transformed into an absolute disaster that ended with security being called and cameras still rolling as one of Hollywood's biggest names stormed off the set. Before we get into this unbelievable confrontation, make sure you subscribe to this channel. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the moments celebrities want buried forever, and the confrontations that shake the entertainment industry to its core. We show you what really happens when the cameras are rolling and the masks come off. Hit that subscribe button right now because you won't want to miss what we uncover next. This is the content the mainstream media won't show you, the raw truth that makes headlines around the world. Last night on Piers Uncensored, what started as a discussion about Grant's career quickly became one of the most uncomfortable and explosive moments in recent television history. The tension was immediate from the very first second. The clash was absolutely brutal, and the ending left everyone in the studio completely stunned and speechless. This wasn't your typical celebrity interview gone slightly wrong. This was a total disaster that spiraled out of control so fast that even the producers didn't know how to handle it. Hugh Grant walked onto the set with his typical British charm, waving to the audience with that familiar smile everyone recognizes from dozens of romantic comedies. He settled into the chair across from Morgan with a slight smile, looking relaxed and confident. The studio lights were bright, almost blindingly so, illuminating the stage where so many confrontations had taken place before. The audience was packed, every seat filled with people eager to see what would happen. There was an energy in the air that suggested something big might happen tonight, though. Nobody could have predicted just how explosive it would become. Grant adjusted his jacket carefully, crossed his legs in that casual way celebrities do, and prepared for what he thought would be a straightforward conversation about his latest project, maybe some friendly banter about his career, nothing too serious. He had done hundreds of interviews over the years. He thought he knew what to expect. He was wrong. The cameras rolled, red lights glowing, capturing everything. The audience was quiet, settling into their seats, the anticipation building. And Morgan wasted absolutely no time diving straight into controversial territory. There was no warm-up, no easy questions to start with, no gentle introduction to ease into the conversation. He leaned forward with that signature confrontational energy he's known for, a smirk already forming on his face before he even spoke. "Hugh, let's not waste time with the usual pleasantries and fake niceties," Morgan began, his tone sharp and cutting from the very first sentence. "I want to talk about your past, the scandals, the tabloid headlines, the moments you'd probably rather everyone forget, the incidents that still follow you around despite your attempts to move on. Let's start with the incident that made headlines around the world, the one that shocked your fans and damaged your carefully crafted reputation. You know exactly which one I'm talking about." Grant's smile faded almost instantly, like someone had flipped a switch. His eyes widened slightly with surprise and something else, maybe anger already starting to bubble up. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly not expecting Morgan to open with such aggressive and personal questions right out of the gate. The actor's hand gripped the armrest of his chair a bit tighter, his knuckles going slightly white. "I thought we were here to discuss my new film," Grant said, his voice tight with restrained irritation, every word carefully controlled. "Not to rehash things from 20 years ago that have been discussed to death in every tabloid and interview imaginable." Morgan leaned back in his chair, looking almost pleased with himself, clearly enjoying Grant's discomfort. "But that's the thing, Hugh. These things don't just go away because you want them to. They don't disappear because time passes. You built your entire career on being this charming, lovable English gentleman, the romantic lead everyone adores, but your personal life tells a very different story, doesn't it? The arrests, the public embarrassments, the scandals that followed you for years and still come up whenever your name is mentioned." The audience members exchanged glances, some looking excited, others looking nervous. This was already more confrontational than most of them expected, and they could sense this might go somewhere uncomfortable. Grant uncrossed his legs and sat up straighter, his entire body language shifting from relaxed and confident to defensive and tense. Piers, everyone makes mistakes. Every single person on this planet has done things they regret. I've owned up to mine. I've apologized publicly multiple times. I've moved on with my life. Why are we still talking about this? What purpose does it serve? Morgan wasn't backing down. He never did. That's what his show was built on, pushing and pushing until something breaks. Well, Hugh, you've made a career out of playing the charming romantic lead, the guy every woman wants to be with, the nice guy who always gets the girl in the end. But your real life has been far messier, hasn't it? Far more complicated than the fairy tales you sell on screen. The public has a right to know about the man behind the movies, the real Hugh Grant. They've paid good money to see your films, to support your career over decades. Don't they deserve complete honesty from you? The audience could feel the temperature in the room drop several degrees, the air becoming thick with tension. Grant's jaw clenched visibly, the muscles working under his skin, his famous composure starting to crack like ice under pressure. His eyes, which had been friendly and open moments ago, now looked hard and cold. The public knows everything they need to know, he replied sharply, his voice taking on an edge that wasn't there moments before, the English accent becoming more pronounced. I've addressed these matters countless times over the years. I've done interviews. I've written about it. I've been completely transparent about my mistakes and my regrets. What exactly are you hoping to achieve here, Piers? A soundbite for your social media accounts? Another viral clip to boost your ratings and get people talking? Is that what this is really about? Morgan laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh at all. It was cold, calculated, almost cruel. The kind of laugh that signals someone is about to make things much worse, someone who's enjoying the discomfort they're causing. Oh, here we go. The classic deflection technique. Attack the interviewer when you don't like the questions being asked. I'm trying to have an honest conversation, Hugh. A real conversation about real issues. Something you seem allergic to when it doesn't suit your carefully crafted public image. Grant's eyes narrowed into slits, his gaze becoming almost piercing. He leaned forward now, his elbows on his knees, getting physically closer to Morgan in a gesture that seemed almost threatening. Honest conversation? Coming from you? That's absolutely rich. That's genuinely hilarious. You've built your entire career on attacking people, stirring up unnecessary controversy, and pretending it's legitimate journalism. You're not a journalist, Piers. You're a professional provocateur who makes money off making people uncomfortable, off creating conflict where none needs to exist. There's a massive difference between asking tough but fair questions and being deliberately cruel for entertainment value and ratings. Morgan's expression darkened considerably, his eyes flashing with anger. Cruel? I'm being cruel? I'm simply asking you to account for your actions, to explain the choices you've made that affected so many people. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why that is. Grant shook his head slowly, a bitter smile crossing his face. No, Piers, you're not asking me to account for anything. You're trying to humiliate me on national television because that's what you do. That's your entire brand, your whole shtick. You invite people on, promise them a fair and respectful conversation, and then ambush them with gotcha questions and moral judgment from your high horse. It's completely transparent, and frankly, it's pathetic. The studio fell silent. Even the crew members exchanged nervous glances. This was no longer just a tense interview. This was personal. Morgan's face flushed red, his famous temper clearly rising. This was escalating fast, and everyone in that studio knew it. How dare you? Morgan fired back, his voice rising with every word. I've interviewed world leaders, covered major news stories, and held powerful people accountable for decades. What have you done besides play pretty boy in romantic comedies and get caught in embarrassing situations? You make movies, Hugh. I make a difference. Grant's laugh was sharp and bitter. Make a difference? Is that what you call it? You ambush people on television? You twist their words? You create controversy where none exists? That's not making a difference, Piers. That's making a spectacle. There's a reason so many people in this industry refuse to come on your show. They know it's a trap. Morgan's eyes flashed with anger. Maybe they refuse because they're afraid of real questions. Maybe they're cowards who hide behind their publicists and their carefully managed images. At least I'm honest about what I do. Can you say the same? Honest? Grant's voice went up an octave. You want to talk about honesty? Let's talk about honesty, Piers. Let's talk about the phone hacking scandal. Let's talk about the stories you've manipulated, the people you've hurt, the careers you've damaged. For a headline, you were involved in one of the biggest media scandals in British history, and yet here you sit, acting like you're some moral authority. The audience was on the edge of their seats. Some people had their mouths open in shock. This wasn't just heated, this was explosive. Morgan stood up from his chair now, unable to contain himself any longer. His face was crimson, his finger pointing directly at Grant. You don't get to bring that up. That was investigated, that was dealt with, and I was cleared of any wrongdoing. You don't get to sit on my show and throw around accusations that have been disproven. Grant stood up too, matching Morgan's energy and raising the stakes even higher. Cleared of wrongdoing doesn't mean innocent, Piers. Everyone knows what went on in those newsrooms. Everyone knows the culture you were part of. The only reason you're still on television is because you're shameless enough to keep pushing forward despite your reputation. Morgan's hands were shaking now, balled into fists at his sides. My reputation? Let's talk about your reputation, Hugh. You were arrested. That's not tabloid gossip, that's a matter of public record. You humiliated yourself, your family, your colleagues. And now you have the audacity to come on here and lecture me about ethics? I never claimed to be perfect, Grant shouted back, his voice echoing through the studio. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, and I've spent years trying to make amends for them. But at least I own what I did. At least I don't hide behind some false persona of moral superiority while attacking everyone else. The tension was unbearable. Morgan's producers were undoubtedly panicking in the control room, but the cameras kept rolling. This was exactly the kind of explosive content that Morgan's show thrived on, even if it meant things were spiraling completely out of control. False persona? Morgan was practically screaming now. This is who I am. I ask the questions other people are too afraid to ask. I hold people like you accountable when no one else will. If you can't handle that, if you can't handle someone challenging your perfect little image, then maybe you shouldn't have agreed to be here. Grant took a step closer to Morgan, his face inches away now. Maybe I shouldn't have. You're absolutely right about that. This was clearly a massive mistake on my part. I was told this would be a respectful conversation about my work, not an ambush designed to embarrass me for your ratings. I was told we'd discuss the film, discuss my career, have an actual, intelligent conversation. Instead, you pulled out the same tired tabloid crap that every second-rate journalist has already asked me 1,000 times. Oh, please, Morgan shouted, his voice cracking slightly. You knew exactly what kind of show this is. Everyone knows what I do here. You've watched my interviews. You've seen how I operate. You just thought you could waltz in with your movie star charm, flash that famous smile, and avoid any real questions. Well, it doesn't work that way, mate. Not on my show. Grant's face was red now, his hands gesturing sharply and emphatically. Real questions? You haven't asked a single substantive question since I sat down. You've just thrown tabloid garbage at me, dredged up ancient history, and acted offended when I called you out for it. This isn't journalism, Piers. This is a circus, and you're the damn clown running it. The audience gasped collectively. Some people looked absolutely shocked, their hands covering their mouths. Others looked like they wanted to applaud but didn't dare in the thick tension filling the studio. Morgan's face went from red to almost purple, the veins in his neck visibly pulsing. He was furious now, completely losing the controlled persona he usually maintained, even in heated moments. "Get off my set!" Morgan yelled, his voice echoing through the studio and probably heard in every hallway outside. "If you're going to sit there and insult me, insult my show, insult everything I've built over decades, then you can get the hell out right now. I don't need you here. I don't need your condescending attitude." Grant didn't hesitate for even a second. "Gladly. I'd rather be anywhere else than sitting across from you, listening to your sanctimonious bullshit." He reached down and ripped off his microphone with such force that the wire snapped, the cord whipping through the air. The small device hit the floor with a crash, the sound picked up by the studio microphones and creating a harsh crackling noise that made everyone wince. Morgan was still shouting, his composure completely shattered. "You think you're better than me? You think you're above this? You're nothing but a washed-up actor desperately clinging to relevance. Your best work is decades behind you." Grant turned back sharply, his eyes absolutely blazing with fury. "And your best work never existed in the first place. You've spent your entire career bullying people, manipulating stories, and pretending it makes you important. At least my work brings people joy. What do you bring, Piers? What do you actually contribute besides anger and division?" "I contribute truth!" Morgan screamed back. "I contribute honest conversations in a world full of fake people like you. People who pretend to be perfect, who hide behind their fame." Grant took several steps back toward Morgan, his finger now pointing accusingly. "Truth? You wouldn't know truth if it hit you in the face. You twist everything to fit your narrative. You make people look bad because it makes you feel powerful. That's not truth. That's manipulation. And everyone watching this can see exactly what you're doing." The security team was moving toward the stage area now, clearly unsure if they needed to physically intervene. The producers were frantically trying to figure out if they should cut to commercial, end the show, or let this absolute disaster play out for the cameras. The raw, unfiltered nature of the confrontation was shocking even by Morgan's notoriously confrontational standards. Morgan followed Grant a few steps, refusing to let him have the last word. "Walk away. That's what you always do, isn't it? When things get tough? When someone actually challenges you? When you can't charm your way out of something? You just run. You run from accountability. You run from difficult conversations. You run from anything real." Grant spun around one final time, his entire body tense, with barely controlled rage. His face was flushed, his breathing heavy. "Challenges me? You haven't challenged anything except my patience and my faith in humanity. You're a bully with a microphone, Piers. Nothing more, nothing less. And everyone watching this right now, everyone in this audience, everyone at home, they all know it. They've always known it. That's why half the country can't stand you." The studio audience was completely silent now, frozen in their seats, watching this unfold like a car crash they couldn't possibly look away from. Some had their phones out, already recording and likely uploading to social media in real time. This was going to be everywhere within minutes, trending worldwide before the show even finished airing. "Security!" Morgan called out again, his voice still elevated but starting to crack with emotion. "Get him out of here! Now! I want him removed from the building!" Grant held up both hands in a gesture of mock surrender, his expression dripping with contempt. "Don't bother. Save them the trouble. I'm leaving. I wouldn't spend another second in this toxic environment if you paid me £1,000,000. This whole show is poison, and you're the source of it." He looked directly at one of the cameras, his expression intense and unwavering. "To anyone watching this at home right now, don't waste your time with this show. It's not news. It's not entertainment. It's not even good television. It's just one man's massive ego on full display. One man's desperate need for attention and validation. You deserve better than this. Everyone deserves better than this." Morgan tried to interrupt. "Don't you dare!" But Grant cut him off, his voice rising over Morgan's. I'm not done! You wanted honest conversation, Piers? Here's some honesty for you. You're everything that's wrong with modern media. You value controversy over substance, conflict over conversation, ratings over responsibility. And the saddest part is, you actually think you're doing something important. He turned and walked toward the exit with purpose, his stride angry and deliberate. The cameras followed him the entire way, capturing every moment of his departure, every expression on his face. Morgan stood on the stage, breathing heavily, his face still flushed with anger and perhaps something else, embarrassment maybe. He looked like he wanted to say more but couldn't quite find the words. His mouth opened and closed several times, but nothing came out. As Grant reached the door to leave the studio, he paused for just a moment. He didn't turn around, didn't look back at Morgan or the audience. He simply pushed through the door with both hands and disappeared into the hallway beyond, the door swinging shut behind him with a loud bang that echoed through the now silent studio. He left behind a studio full of shocked faces, stunned silence, and a host who looked like he'd just been through an absolute battle and lost. The cameras continued to roll on Morgan, who slowly, almost mechanically, sat back down in his chair. His hands were trembling slightly as he reached up to adjust his tie. He tried to compose himself, straightening his jacket and clearing his throat. Multiple times, his face was still red, his breathing still heavy. But the damage was done, and everyone in that studio knew it. The damage was catastrophic and irreversible. The audience didn't know how to react. No one clapped, no one cheered, no one even whispered to the person next to them. They just sat there, processing what they had just witnessed. Some looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats. Others looked almost guilty, as if they had watched something they shouldn't have seen, something too raw and too real for television. Morgan finally spoke, his voice hoarse and shaky. Well, there you have it, folks. Hugh Grant, showing his true colors. Unable to handle a simple conversation, unable to face legitimate questions about his past. But even as he said the words, they felt hollow. Everyone could see through the attempt to regain control, to spin this disaster into something he had orchestrated. One of the producers walked onto the set, whispering something to Morgan. He nodded, his jaw tight. The show had to go on, but how do you continue after something like that? How do you pretend everything is normal when the entire world just watched a complete meltdown on live television? This wasn't just another heated interview that would be forgotten by tomorrow. This was a complete breakdown of civility between two public figures, broadcast live for millions to witness. The kind of raw, unscripted drama that people would be analyzing, debating, and sharing for days, maybe weeks. The kind of moment that defines careers and changes public perception. The studio remained in stunned silence as Morgan attempted to regain control of his show, shuffling papers on his desk that didn't need shuffling, taking sips of water he didn't need. But everyone in that room knew that control had been lost the moment Grant stood up and fought back, the moment he refused to play along with Morgan's usual game, the moment he called everything out for exactly what it was. This was the confrontation that nobody expected when Grant walked onto that stage with a smile. This was the meltdown that happened in real time, with no script, no rehearsal, no safety net. This was the dramatic exit that would define both men's public images for the foreseeable future. The moment that would be replayed over and over on social media, dissected by commentators, and remembered as one of television's most explosive confrontations. Grant was gone, somewhere in the hallways of the building, probably being escorted out by security, or already in his car, driving away from this disaster. The door to the studio was still, the echo of it slamming shut still hanging in the air like smoke after an explosion. Morgan sat alone on that stage, surrounded by cameras, crew members avoiding eye contact, and a studio audience that didn't know whether they should stay or leave. The professional facade had crumbled completely. The carefully managed television persona had shattered. What remained was just two men who genuinely couldn't stand each other, whose egos had collided with such force that there was no walking it back, no diplomatic resolution, no publicist statement that could fix what had just happened. What started as a simple appearance on a talk show, what should have been a quick promotional interview for a film, had transformed into a full-blown war of words. It became a clash of egos, a public spectacle that neither man could take back or erase, no matter how much they might want to. The cameras had captured everything, every insult, every accusation, every moment of rage and frustration. The confrontation was over, the guest was gone, but the weight of it still hung heavy in that studio. And somewhere, millions of people were watching, rewinding, recording, and sharing what they had just witnessed. The fallout would be enormous, the think pieces would be endless, and both men would be dealing with the consequences of this night for a very long time.